Hey everybody, Phil here. Just finished day 2 of my Galfond challenge against Jungleman Daniel Cates. Let's hop into the biggest pots of the day. I 3-bet king, queen, queen, jack, double suited. Go ahead with a flop c-bet, very standard thus far. I actually c-bet my full range here for a third pot in a 3-bet pot. And now I have my first tough decision as to whether I want to try to go for 3 streets of value for like a small sizing or a large sizing, or if I want to check. I think on this board where all these low straights complete and a lot of my range is very uncomfortable, I prefer to go for a check. It checks through. Now I think I have a clear pot bet. It's a little thin to check raise, I think, especially because I have the jack of diamonds. I don't want to, but it would not be totally unreasonable. And he actually goes ahead and raises the river. So he's saying he has a nut or second nut flush. I have to decide, is he going to have that more often or a single blocker more often than he played this way? And I think it's actually really close. Really, really close, to be honest. I don't have a very strong feeling. I decided to call and was fortunate to run to the slow played aces pre that had the ace of diamonds and 2 pair. So we take down a nice pot. Next, we 3-bet ace, queen, jack 8, nut diamonds. On ace jack 4, I have 2 sizings, third pot and full pot. Usually, a lot of ace jack goes into the full pot range, but not with the nut backdoor flush draw because I want to keep in more hands. And this is why. Now on the turn, I think I have a very clear big bet. Do not like checking this hand at all. Big bet or small bet. The problem with checking is when you get, when you face a bet, you should check raise, but then you're making him bet fold a lot of dominated hands and bet call all of his sets that beat you. And straights if he has them, but not very many. Definitely want to bet, get called by dominated 2 pair, dominated flush draws, etc. And he calls. Tough spot on the river. I very rarely have straights, so I either have a flush or some kind of misdraw or some kind of like set or top 2. I decided to check because I think he's going to have, I mean, with flushes, I get it either way. I think with straights, probably just as good if I bet or check, because he could fold to a bet, but he could also not always bet. But he will have some missed draws, so I decided to go for the check. He puts in, 3/4 pot. I put the rest in, and he calls with a queen high flush. Next time we 3-bet, very nice flop. I'm betting my full range on this board. Basically any 2 Broadway board in a 3-bet pot, I'm betting my full range. Solver would bet something like 90%, but I don't have that level of precision. Turn, I decide to bet. Could go either way on the turn. Actually, could go several ways on the turn. And river, very unfortunate card. I check, he pots. I have a hard time, especially when I have an ace, a queen, and a 10. Even though I have a 10 of clubs, I have a hard time coming up with bluffs for him. So I like just folding, which is what I do. Defend the big blind, queen, jack, 9-9, beautiful flop. Have to check raise this. Do not check call an open ender with second set. It's just way too good of a hand. And here on the turn, I think I make a mistake. I think I should bet the turn, but I decided to check. And now against a bet, I think I have a tough decision whether I should check raise, try to make him fold a hand like 8-6 or make him fold a hand with equity, or if I should just call and try to realize my equity and probably lead on most of the rivers that I hit. On the 5, I think I have a very clear lead. And unfortunately, he folds. Open the button, ace, queen, jack, 8 double. We are 160 big blinds deep. By the way, I forgot to mention, this is 100-200, but we're playing 10-20, cross-booking 10x stakes. So this pot right now in the middle, there's 1,000, but it's actually 10,000. And I have 30,000 in my stack here. And with top pair, I think I have to bet. I have to bet, and it's either small or big, and there's no real folding after I bet, I think. I decided to pot, which I'm not entirely sure about, but I think it's nice to be able to fold out king-king in a spot like this. And then I do get it in. Like, if I get it in, I'm probably slightly behind, but I do get it in against some hands that I do well against. He had dry aces. I think he should have ripped it pre, but not unreasonable. And we get it in with, if I'm guess, 35% equity, if I had to guess. A little more. Probably a little more. But we do not get there. And that's a big pot that goes his way. 60-some odd thousand. With the crossbook, I raise, get 3-bet, call. Very standard check back on the flop. Don't bet this hand, there's no purpose. Just get called by every better hand and fold out every worse hand. Here on the turn, I think some players would go for a small bet, but I think I'm mostly repping trips are better here, even though I check back flop. I'm going to check back some trips on the flop. And because he's going to have so many ace-ace and king-king combos, I don't really want to start but like small betting queens. I mean, like you can, but I prefer to just mostly big bet and have a very small, very low betting frequency. And obviously potting river. He's going to end up jamming here. I'm obviously calling this hand, but I actually think I'm behind his range. I'm getting a million to one, so I'm not going to consider folding this. And it's he would shove jack deuce, he probably shoved 9 deuce, but he just doesn't have those as much as he has a hand like 9-9 or jack jack. So I'm never considering folding, but I do like to do some hand rating, and I thought I was reasonably likely to be beat. He shoved this hand, which I don't think is a good shove. It's not entirely unreasonable, but I don't think it's good. He basically decided I wouldn't have slow played a lot of trips on the flop, so I don't have a lot of boats. Or maybe he thought that I was still betting. It's one way or the other. Either he thought I was betting trips a lot, or he thought I just wouldn't have trips a lot. Call 3-bet. This is a pretty good bluffing candidate. I have a club, I have a 3, and I have some backdoor draws. Hit the perfect turn. And now I just pot for value, looking to get it in. I could go with 3/4, but I kind of like pot as the sizing here. He calls. And here on the river, we have a real decision. I think flop and turn were relatively standard. Turn was entirely standard. Flop's kind of whatever. Now I have to decide how often am I beat by 5 deuce, 5-7, jack 6, jack 4. Jack 9, he would have shoved turn. Sets, he would have shoved turn. He does get there with some jack 6. He doesn't have a lot of 5 deuce pre. He does have some 5-7. He does have some jack 4 that plays this way. I decided to go for some thin value, I think. And fortunately, he has the 9-3 and calls it off. Raise a limp pre, bet flop with 100% of my range, check turn and go for the check raise, trying to fold out 5-8, fold out some bluffs, fold out some 2-pair. He ends up calling. So now I'm thinking 5-8 plus redraw, like jack 10-9 with a flush draw, something like that. And I think I have to go for it with a little under half pot left. I think it's just a good bluff jam. If he's got a good hand, he's got a good hand. But I rep it very credibly at this point. I go for it. He ends up making the call with a set of 9s, well, all the 9s, and a queen. A queen is a pretty key blocker here. I think if he had a set of 9s with like a king even, I'd be likely to get the fold. But the queen, I'm repping queen 10 specifically, and I'm going to use 10-10 blockers more than queen-queen blockers. So queen is a really good blocker for him to have. So that's too bad. 3-bet aces, even though they're weak, go ahead and bet full range on this board for a very small sizing 1/6 pot. Small bet turn, pretty standard thus far. I could check call turn. He raises. No folding ace-ace with the deuce 5 wrap, even though he's repping obviously trips plus. And on this river, decide to make the fold. It's close, but I just didn't think it was going to work out well for me overall. He had queen 3. We were letting each other know hands in chat. Raise the button ace, king, king, pretty standard. And we flop top set, easy bet. Still got the nuts on the turn, easy bet again. Full pot's my only sizing. Essentially the nuts on the river, we bet. He actually shoves the last 900 in, we happily call. He has king queen, which I analyzed this during the stream. I think it's a good jam, but it's very close as to whether he should call or jam. I think he's right to jam, though. It's very close. Call the 3-bet, call the half-pot c-bet with a double gut shot. We get there on the turn. I had some interesting thoughts on this during the stream, but I won't bore you with all the details now. You can check out the replay. But I shove turn rather than call with this hand. Call 3-bet, flop everything. Well, not everything, but all the board pairs, and including top set. I go ahead and bet. Small. Turn, close decision. I just had to check, keep in his like queens and stuff like that. And when he bets, I have a very close spot. Do I raise or call? I decided to raise. I thought I would have the best hand. Too often not to. And he folds ace 7. Ace 5, 6, 7, I think he had. Defend the big blind, go for the check raise with top 2 and an open ender. He calls. Going to go ahead and pot the turn. And he shoves the rest in. We call it off. And we're up against basically the same hand. He's got a little bit more of a redraw than I do, but not much more. And we chop it up. Relatively standard from both parties. This one was an interesting one. I 3-bet, I call a 4-bet, ace jack 9 8. Pretty sure this is standard all around thus far. He checks back flop. So he's going to have some, I think he just rips in ace ace. So I kind of think he's weak on this flop. And I feel like I want some hands that can bet fold and then also can bluff on like the 9 river or the jack of clubs river, for example. So I go for it. Planning to pot fold, of course, with just my gut shot and a club blocker. He calls. We get the queen of clubs. I mean, I'm obviously bluffing at this point, hoping that he has a hand like jack 10 7, jack 10 9. If he somehow has like ace ace 10 and played it this way, but I don't think he does. I shouldn't be too worried about the queen because he just gets a lot of queen X in on flop. I do shove. Unfortunately, he had 4 5 6 7 with clubs, which I mean, I understand why he played it that way. I don't mind my play though. I think it's quite reasonable. It was an unfortunate river because I was going to win it on a number of rivers. Call 3-bet, flop a wrap, easy call. He bets again, easy call once again. Just too much equity. I'm often beat, but not always, and he's got a lot of aces and kings, queens that I have good equity against. Unfortunately, when he bets this river, he's kind of repping better. Excuse me. Unfortunately, when he bets this river, he's just repping better than my hand. So, not thrilled, but with 2 8s especially, blocking jack 8, I think I just need to call. Is it possible he has ace ace deuce? Maybe, maybe. And obviously he can have some bluffs, but he did have queen queen jack 8. So we lost that one. And that was it, I believe, for the session. So an unfortunate turn of events. We started out doing very well, ended up actually down about 50K by the end after that big ace queen jack 8 double suited pot. So minus 50K on the day. Unlike day one, I feel like I played really well. So I'm happy with my play. I'm happy with what I did, and the cards didn't cooperate today. And I'm eager to see what I can do tomorrow.